What's going on, guys? I'm back again with another hell testimony, and this is a powerful one as well. I'm gonna get right to the video.
And his cohort. Most people still do not believe hell exists. I was once a part of them. I only thought hell is while you leave on earth. This was totally wrong. After what I went through, I can boldly confirm that there is a place for sinners and those who refuse to seek salvation in the Lord Jesus Christ. This is called eternal condemnation. My lust for women started when I was just a teenager. Due to my lust for women and my intense sexual desires, I started masturbating at a very young age. At the time, I wasn't able to approach women, so I would only watch pornographic scenes and stroke myself. I initially thought, with time, the desire would stop. But I realized I fell deeply into it. I kept this as a secret and never informed anyone, not even my mom. I knew the society, and the faith of my mom as a Christian was against it. This continued for so long, and I grew with it. It got to a point where I no longer got the excitement I needed when having sex the normal way with ladies. The effect of what I had watched on adult websites propelled my desire to crave for something extraordinarily. In fact, I grew up to become a total slave to the devil. I was only interested in things that were disgustful and intolerant. Dear sir, I would not want to waste much time to speak of all the disgustful things that I did. I personally did not know they were wrong and brutal. I felt there is a force that pushed me to do them. I was possessed to believe that these things were a way of life to satisfy one's urge. One of the things I did, which I never know it was very demonic and also had physical health implications, was oral sex, and any time I engaged in it, I felt a level of dominance over the woman. And I derived joy in it. It became a norm or tradition for me to do it any time I wanted to have sex with a woman. And I did this regardless the state of the woman. I am sorry to say this. I know it's absolutely evil to say this, and I have to say it, so others who are into this same act will stop immediately. I practiced oral sex on women, even when they were in their period or menses, and at some point, I was beginning to get attracted to animals. This is why I keep saying I was possessed at the time, and I was a slave to Satan. If not for the mercy of God, I would still be in this evil bondage with the devil. My insatiable lust for women had become a relentless force that, unbeknownst to me, I was trapped in a cycle of desire and conquest, always chasing the next thrill, the next adventure. And it wasn't just about the women themselves. It was the rush of excitement, the thrill of the chase, and the satisfaction of conquest that I craved. But with every new encounter, a piece of my soul seemed to wither away, and I found myself yearning for something more, something lasting. On the 23rd of October last year, this experience I am about to tell you happened immediately I had finished having an affair with a woman in bed. I got up, freshened up, and decided to take some rest. At the time, I knew I wasn't sleeping, but this occurred to me like it was real. I felt every part of the situation in my soul and body. It may seem to be like a dream or vision, I can't actually say, but it was so real. I found myself in a place like an old prison cell. I lied on the cold floor of the wretched cell, my strength utterly drained from me. Raising my head from the barren floor, I was met with a surreal sight. I realized I was not alone in that forsaken cell. Two towering monstrous creatures loomed over me, their immense stature reaching an astounding 10 to 13 feet. It's difficult to put into words just how intimidating they were. It seemed I was trapped in that prison cell with these creatures. They tried to escape, but they couldn't. Then instead, they turned their anger on me. Being threatened by someone taller and bigger than you is one thing, but these beings were unlike anything from the natural world. Their very presence exuded pure, unrestrained malevolence, freezing me in place with a terror beyond imagination. Nothing about this place and experience was familiar, and I had no inkling of how I had ended up there. But what I did know was that a torturous demise seemed all but certain. These creatures defied categorization. They were neither animals nor humans. They resembled grotesque reptilian figures, yet their limbs were grotesquely disproportionate, devoid of symmetry. The first creature, shorter but powerfully built, had a body covered in bumps and scales. Its jaw jutted forward, revealing gigantic, menacing teeth, and its sunken eyes pierced through my soul. It paced violently within the confines of the cell, akin to a caged bull, exuding an almost frenzied malevolence. The second beast, taller and more slender, had long, sinewy arms, adorned with razor-sharp fins. Its claws, nearly a foot long, protruded from its hands. Though its evil essence remained undeniable, it stood relatively still, casting a shadow of sinister calm. I could hear them. They spoke to one another, a language I couldn't quite place, and yet somehow I understood their dreadful words. Their blasphemous language was a chorus of hatred directed at God, an expression of loathing that sent shivers down my spine. In that moment, as I lay helpless in the presence of these abominable creatures, I realized the gravity of the situation. This was no ordinary nightmare. No, not at all. This was an encounter with pure, unadulterated evil. The monstrous creatures, their malevolent gaze locked on me, resembled nothing less than predators closed in on their helpless prey. In that instant, I felt like a minuscule insect ensnared in a deadly spider's web. The fear that coursed through paralyzed me, and I was left with an overwhelming sense of hopelessness, trapped and frozen in place. I became the unfortunate object of their profound hostility, and a suffocating evil presence enveloped me, a sensation beyond any human capacity to fathom. Their hatred was a monstrous entity in its own right, a force that dwarfed any human animosity. The intensity of their loathing was directed solely at me, an overwhelming malevolence that left me quivering with dread. Then all of a sudden, the prison in which we were locked up began to shake, like there was an earthquake. And suddenly, the ground opened so wide, and both myself and the monsters were driven with full speed into the ground. And then I saw that we ended up in a place like a lake. But the lake was not filled with water, but rather fire. Both myself and the monsters were trapped in this lake also, and we began to burn all together. Sincerely, I felt the pain and heat in my body. Desperation seized me, and I yearned to summon every ounce of strength within me to escape this hellish confinement. But as I laid there burning, I realized that my body had betrayed me, and I hated the smell of my body burning. It was so disgusting. I was utterly drained, devoid of any semblance of strength. I couldn't fathom why, and I was left physically, mentally, and emotionally depleted. This wasn't merely a physical weakness. It was a deep, soul-crushed frailty that transcended any mortal affliction. I had experienced moments of weakness in the past, particularly after intense emotional distress or loss, but this was something else entirely. It was a bleak, unending despair that weighed me down, a despair I knew I would never recover from. As the minutes ticked on, the torment intensified, and the two grotesque creatures were also burning. They screamed in terror. They tried to escape, yet it was not possible. They tried seeking for powers or something. I don't know, but they tried calling for help as they kept chanting in the fire, but no one came to their aid. I had this unsettled sensation that these beings were specifically assigned to me while I was on earth. They were the demons that made me do the evil things I did. The sex, those disgustful practices. I cried deeply within my soul when these things begun to unfold themselves to me. The place plunged into absolute darkness, a darkness that devoured even the faintest hint of light, shrouding us in an oppressive, soul-chilling obscurity. The excruciating pain was there. The agony was indescribable, and I watched in horror as my own flesh hung from my mangled body like grotesque ribbons. It was an unrelenting assault on the very essence of my being, a torment that defied the laws of the human body. Yet death remained elusive, a distant dream. While in the fire, I pleaded for mercy, while the monsters also kept chanting. But this only intensified their torment. In this place, mercy was an alien concept, a divine attribute that had no place in the heart of such pure, unadulterated evil. I was conscious of the fact that my body held no fluids, no blood, no water, nothing. My physical state was inconceivable. Nausea overwhelmed me, not only from the pain, but also from the repulsive stench that emanates from the creatures. It was a noxious, putrid odor that defied description. An amalgamation of all things foul and rotten. It was, without a doubt, the most horrendous smell I had ever encountered. Amidst all of this, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the horrors I was experiencing were 1,000 times worse than I could ever imagine. The smell, the intensity of the fire, the deafening screams, the desolation, they were all facets of a pure, unadulterated terror that defied any human comparison. Instantly, my eyes and ears were opened. I saw that I was not the only one in such agony. I saw a multitude of people, each assigned with a horrible torment. There were loud screaming everywhere. I then realized there was this being hanging in the sky. He looked like a heavenly angel. He then spoke with a thunderous voice. He said, "Unto you that takes pleasure in fornication, and sin that defiles the temple of our holy God, oral sex is evil. Any man that practices fornication and adultery is a sin. Any man that sleeps with his fellow man is demon-possessed. Any man that practices oral sex defies the holy God." I was shocked to hear that. One of the reasons that brought me to hell was oral sex acts. The angel spoke from a distance, with his hands folded together around his chest. He said again, "As you go, live not to please your desire, craving, and sexual urge for evil sex style. Live to please the Lord." And immediately I found myself back to my room, heavily covered in sweat, shaking, and in tears. Great Miracle Avenue. I prayed that your audience adhere to this that I'm about to say. Oral sex and any other sex that goes beyond the natural way of having sex will eventually end its victim in hell. Hell is real and a no place for anyone because it's terrible. And now a repentant soul, I can't afford to go back to that terrible place again. What happened to me was just a few minutes, and it was unbearable.
Thank you guys for watching the video. If you have not subscribed to Prophetic Dreamer, go join Prophetic Dreamer. Y'all catch me in the next one. Peace.